Star Trek, Motorola. Prepare to be amazed. What do we see here? This is a Motorola flip phone. Motorola about 10 years earlier came up with the original cellular phone. It was pretty much like a concrete or a brick that had an antenna on it and a keypad, and that was your cellular phone. But it was really innovative at the time. And this Motorola Star Trek is the first cellular phone that has the camshell flip. And that's what we were really highlighting. What you saw was, in my imagination, a multi-million-dollar intro video to just highlight the awesomeness and amazingness that this phone symbolized. You don't see a big display here. You just see a small LED one. It says it's dual band. I'm not sure if that means that it can operate on CDMA technology, which is what Sprint and Verizon and US Cellular operate, or GSM technology, which is what AT&T, T-Mobile, iWireless, and other providers operate. And GSM technology is nice because you can pop in and out of the SIM card, and it really liberates you, where the CDMA technology really operates more on a proprietary format. But anyhow, I guess the main reason I'm going on about this, I could swear I saw this in a phone book ad, and I may find that image and send it to you, in the 90s, where it was like US Cellular, and I'm trying to remember who else advertised. It was US Cellular, I know for sure, and one other provider were like, we have Motorola phones, and this was like the flagship phone. There was no texting. There was no going on the internet or even getting color pictures. It was pretty much that you had instantaneous communications in your pants anywhere you went, that you could be summoned. This is a lot better than a pager, unless you're a drug dealer and you don't want to be traced. But because this did enable a lot of tracing technology. Because really, to go on about this and the communication stuff, pagers, there's really three types of paging technology. There's one-way, 1.5-way, and two-way pagers. And Motorola did a lot with the pagers. One way is just where it says, yo, package been dropped. And then you go where you already predetermined that said package was dropped, or your medical doctor and they're saying code blue in room da 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 da, and then they play the ER music and slow-mo it, and then you save somebody's life or they flatline, whatever it is. But you do have the pager. I have a cousin that's a medical doctor, and he still has probably 6 pagers from the different hospitals in a large metropolitan area that he works at. It's still used because there's less interference with pagers, and also with this type of technology here. Because this thing, all it did was really 2, maybe 3 things. You could send calls, you could make outbound calls, you could receive inbound calls, and I think you could receive text messages on here. Now, you couldn't send them, but you could at least receive a text. And again, this phone came out around January of 1996, so it's a little over 20 years, almost 22 years old. But it was the first to have this particular style and design. That's why it's really worthy of a video here. Motorola started around the 1920s, 1930s in Chicago, and really had a lot of patents for their cellular and radio communications technology. You'll see, even back in the 60s phone book ads that we saw, they would talk about Motorola televisions and also Motorola radios. Like, they really were good at their communications technology. Eventually, they had financial issues, and the iPhone busted their balls and all that stuff. Google bought them up for a couple $1 billion, spun off part of the company, and kept them for the patents. Because they had so many cellular patents that they could say, hey, Apple, you want to sue us? Bring your lawyers, bitches, because we got all the Motorola patents. And that's what they really wanted from Motorola. But so it was really kind of a cool, innovative one. Later on, we're going to do a video about the Motorola Razr, which is what I grew up with and was really kind of the preeminent flip phone from 2003 until I'd say 2007.
Yeah, and this video is going to be entitled the Motorola Manifesto because from previous conversations I've had with the Deviant historian, I know that he is a big fan of Motorola, and it's pretty much the company that he's committed to when it comes to cell phones. Pretty much every phone you intend from now on,
Yeah.
pretty much from to have Motorola phones for going forward.
Yes. So I'll go through a couple of these other phones now. I mean, is there anything else you want to chime in with this particular model?
No, we can just leave it there.
Okay.
But then we'll put this one in frame.
So this is my only non-Motorola phone that I believe I've had. I got it used. It was before Android upped their game on smartphones, and I didn't pay for data. I've never really paid for data. This is an iPhone 3GS. And why I really want to bring it up and why I think it's important, it's the last generation of this particular style of iPhone, which is really the classic original iPhone style. I paid about $150 for it several years ago. And it was released in 2009. The original one was released in 2007. Since it's the third gen, because with iPhone 3G, iPhone 3GS, it really, I feel like, was the peak of Apple's iPhones. This is before Android got their shit together. This is before Android actually made really functioning phones. They had phones, but I wouldn't really say they were at the same caliber that this was. But then eventually the Uberments of phones came along. Android was able to adapt to the market, was able to lower prices, raise quality, and really make better quality products. And that's where I'm going to go with this now. I'm going to show you the next one. So this is my next Motorola phone. As you can tell, the quality of construction and the caliber of that it's made is just amazing. It doesn't take bricks to the cement or cement to the screen really well, though. I kind of learned that the hard way. This one I bought, I believe, in 2013, I think. It's a Moto G. It's the most expensive Motorola I've ever owned. And I learned a lot about just this technology and just this device. You can see it's kind of shard here. And it's interesting. It was made in America. It was actually owned by Google at the time when this one was made. I really don't use this much. It still boots up, still lights up. It's just I don't want to cut my finger on the screen at all. And after that, I really stuck to Moto Gs. But this is... Let's compare. Well, I'm not going to compare this. We're done with that one. That's about that. This is my next phone. This is what I used to replace that one. This is a Moto G. Moto X is their flagship one. This one, it runs just pure Linux Android. I do not have Google enabled on this at all. I just use F-Droid, which is a free and open source app distributor. Or distribution system comparable to Google Play Store, only free and open source applications, and that's all that I run on this. I ended up locking myself out of this phone, and I beat it to hell too. I had it from 2014 till 2016. So I always feel that phones are kind of defective by design, and that they're I probably could have made it last more, but I beat it to hell. It does have the OtterBox, and you can see it kind of cracked there, but it's still a pretty solid phone. I mean, it's pretty good, and I really liked it. I used it a lot. Now I'm going to compare it to the one that I got in 2016. About the same time that this one failed, I got this phone. This is the newer Moto G. I only paid $100 for this. I paid probably $200 for that and like $300 for the one that I shattered to shit. But they all run Android. They are all pretty good. This is the main phone that I'm running now. I always laugh Motorola for life because I like their phones. They have built-in FM radios. They don't disable the software. They really try to make them functional and optimize them for it. Where I feel like a lot of the other phone hardware manufacturers are more exploitive and are more shitty. I mean, I want something that's good quality, but I'm not gonna pay a month's rent for a freaking phone. The price of the technologies, Moore's law is already in effect. None of this stuff's cutting edge, but this stuff always works. It's operational. I can take pictures. I can check email. I can go online. I can watch YouTube. I can do everything that I really want to do on this thing, and I only paid like $100 for it. And I only pay about $13.50 a month for phone service through a company called Republic Wireless, which is a CLEC, and that is a competitive local exchange carrier. CLEC started in 1996 by some telecom act or another, but it was interesting how it changed the phone industry because it brought more competition in the traditional landline industry, and that's at the same time that this phone kind of came out. It was 1996, so that was a really big shakeup because the regulatory structure in the telecom industry, the 1996 Act was the biggest change in that structure really for phone regulations since the 1935 Telecommunications Act. So it was really a major overhaul in 60 years. But unlike Glass-Steagall, this one was actually innovative and helped people's lives and really created technology change instead of creating consolidated, too big to fail, crooked banks that had exploited everybody else and got a bunch of taxpayer bailouts. These created a lot of different companies. A whole bunch of them went bankrupt and failed within 5 years. But based on that, it's sort of like Isaac Newton's quote, if I could see any farther by standing on the shoulder of giants. Is it that or it's something like that?
Yes, if I've seen farther than most, it's from standing on the shoulders of giants.
Or, you'd see farther as the giants like crumbling down because he was based on bad economic philosophy and theory, and then it just all kind of crashed because some of it just, it was not viable. I mean, I think everybody got in this big tech boom in the 90s. They're all like, everything with microchips and semiconductors and fiber and cellular is all going to make us millionaires. We'll never have to work again and all this stuff. And it was really kind of a speculative bubble that just burst and just blew up. And Billy Bob didn't diversify his assets. He put all of his stock in a semiconductor company, and then the semiconductor company started at $10 a share, peaked at $150 a share, crashed at 10 cents a share. And then Billy Bob's out his ass because, who knew? And then Mitt Romney comes in, scrapes it up for pennies on the dollar, and consolidates it. Now, there's still a solid foundation that a lot of these, again, are built on. They really laid the backbone on how a lot of this technology would be used and all that. And I did go on quite a tangent there that wasn't really Motorola related, but it still kind of was, because a lot of these technologies, a lot of these infrastructure investments that were spurred by changes in regulatory environments and also changes in cultural and also economic perception allowed for a lot of innovation and growth. Because if you didn't have all these startups and these delusional nut jobs just pissing billions of dollars away in fantasy land, you wouldn't have had Amazon. You wouldn't have had the internet infrastructure that we have now. You wouldn't have had the phones change to the level that they did. So there are a lot of pros and cons to that, but in the end, even after all the bankruptcies and after all the chaos and all the craziness and the job loss, disruption, growth, boom, bust, whatever, are we better as a society with the chaos of a market economy and allowing people to choose and allowing businesses to fail? Or is it better to have an elite group of PhDs command and control the economy and tell us how much porridge we can have, or that we have to shut the lights off because, comrade douchebag needs to have another Rolls Royce in his in his palace? But anyhow, that was, I guess, my little economic tirade that had a little bit to do with phones there, but it was really more about technology, innovation, and a regulatory environment. Because I have really mixed feelings about a lot of the ways that they regulate the internet and regulate how communications technology works. There's different charges like E911 on everybody's bill that subsidizes the emergency lines. So when you call your dial 911, it gets answered, and it gets answered right away. I would love it if these phones, when you dial 911, had a really accurate GPS stuff. You've seen some of the stuff, right, with people dialing 911, And then they're like, I don't know where I'm at. I just drove off the road and I'm in a river. And then, and I'm like, "Yes, sir, we don't have your location. It says that you live in bumfuck nowhere, 20 miles from the nearest cell tower here. Yeah, the water's rising really fast, man. You gotta send somebody." And see if what's that device that me and you got? You got me one of these, and the captain here got me a device that I can bust out my windshield if I ever.
Oh, yeah, there's like a window breaker.
Yeah, see, so you can save a life. If Billy Bob had a window breaker, his ass wouldn't be going down, and then he wouldn't be on ABC News, and then they'd be like, we need more regulations and invasion of privacy, because that would have saved Billy Bob's life there. If I think the accuracy in the GPS would. What I really would like is in a lot of devices and a lot of cars, they have the OnStar feature, and if you have a button within your car where you could just press emergency and then it sends the GPS from the car to the nearest cellular tower or 911 emergency call center, that would be really functional. And you shouldn't charge people for that. That should just be part of like the DMV license registration. And it shouldn't be that hard. It should say, hey, small data packet, GPS coordinates. And you press that button, it alerts those guys, and then they know your exact fucking coordinates. You're not going to be like, trying to dial out for 911 and then be like, well, I don't know, man, you're somewhere, and then they got to go on like a wild goose chase, and then what's that one song that they play? I mean, maybe it's not that bad, but it does feel like it's the Benny Hill of trying to find somebody, and this is like life and death shit. This isn't like you're trying to like order an Uber or you're trying to like do some bullshit stuff. This is like pretty crucial stuff, and we can't even up our game. Like all these different things, they know when you log in on Facebook if you went to a freaking restaurant. They know at Google I get suggestions saying, hey, we know you ate at that pizza parlor. Do they have Wi-Fi? So it can tell me that, but I can't tell a first responder where I'm at in my car as I'm going down in a freaking creek. I'm up a creek without a GPS system accurate enough to save my life. It's kind of bullshit. But anyhow, the GPS was also really kind of a cool technology. I watched a documentary on that, and that's also important with cellular devices too, because it really lets them triangulate the location and communicate more effectively. Because there's a lot of things where there's like collision domains and different things that really control and regulate the flow of data and the way in which phone calls are provisioned and operate in. Because if you think about it, it is kind of an amazing feat that you can have millions of calls going on at the same time, all on the same network. But I think a lot of it too is that people really transition to text messaging, and text messaging uses maybe 1/100th of the data and the resources that someone's voice would require, because then it's just text data going back and forth. But for the longest time, I think this phone companies really like gouging the shit out of people for texting. They'd be like, oh, Susie, your teenage daughter texted 3,000 text messages in like a month or something. Or maybe more likely, when it's an American teenage girl and it's her and her friends that are bitches that are texting each other, it's more like 300,000 text messages in 1 month. Because she's even doing it when she's sleeping. That's how good these kids are. That's how well they're knowledgeable on the technology, that they can just thumb it in while they're there. Now, I think that's changed a fair amount with the Snapchats and with all the other invasion of privacy apps that they've rolled out, which are really kind of interesting that they that they do that. And now you would have your iPhones, which are more proprietary and locked down, and everybody. That's pretty much the bread and butter for Apple, and I feel like that the people who love iPhones are going to just be eating Apple's iPhones shit for the rest of their life. They got buyers for life. I mean, until they put like the iChip and they like stick it up your ass and they have it implemented there, where it's a full body monitoring system and it also is a full body notification system. Now, to try to go from iChip 1 to iChip 2, that's a really kind of painful surgery. They do give you some suppository though, so it lets you remove the initial iChip, but that's one of the things that I have issues with. I don't really like wearable technology, and that actually ties into a newer book about gym use and technology. I checked it out at the library here. It's called Unplugged, Because everybody's talking about, they're like, well, I love my spine machine that tells me I need to walk. This one said that I need to do 10 jumping jacks, and it's like, are you in control of your sovereignty or of your health? Are you letting that little tech bitch tell you what to do? You know, you need to finish your dozen donuts, man. Drink some coffee, go to the bathroom, and then pass out in your lazy boy. And be a proud American, and don't surrender to this tech Nazi bullshit. You gotta do what's right. This is fucking America, man. You know, we fought battles and wars to down a 2-liter of Mountain Dew and smoke a pack of cigarettes and then watch some Jerry Springer or some other crap on TV. And we're not going to let some little tech bitch from China tell me to go, ooh, you jump jack now. You know, I don't give a shit. I'll do what I want to do when I want to do it. You know, I don't, long story short, I don't have any tech bitch telling me what I'm going to do when I'm going to do it. So I don't have Surrey. She don't give me no attitude. And I don't have a, what the hell is it? They got the Pebble watch, and that's okay, I guess. That one, that doesn't piss me off. But what's the one that Marion spent all the taxpayer money on to give all their employees?
Fitbit.
Bingo. They give them Fitbits, and they're probably tracking spyware. They're gonna be like, "Yeah, Billy Bob from Streets. We know you with the Woody Strip Club. We saw your Fitbit. I don't know what she was doing to you with the Fitbit,
It sure got your heart rate, your heart rate going though.
You know, so I mean, how much of that spyware, and how much of that's just whatever, you know? I mean, where do you draw the line on privacy, and also how does that really motivate it? How did that help the government employees of Marion when they were spending your hard-earned tax dollars buying themselves Fitbits instead of taking the initial personal responsibility? Is that really reducing healthcare costs, or is that just somebody else bitching at the DMV lady? You know, did they really want that? And would that, I would want to see a study what it did for 5 years. And shit, I wouldn't even believe that stuff's compatible for 5 years.
You know, starting with my Sony Ericsson, I've always had an app on my phone that tells me, like, it's a pedometer app basically, and it tells you how many calories you burn and everything like that. And I would be lying if I said that it made any difference really in my personal habits.
Yeah.
It basically what I did was what I would have ended up doing anyway. So it's like, you know, and also it's just a fact, and we're really digressing a hell of a lot.
No, but this is all innovative technology. This is all mobile types of technology.
It's true, but it's basically modern nutrition and fitness and wellness studies have determined that exercise doesn't really make that much of a difference in your overall well-being. It's something that you should do. I mean, it's healthy and everything, but it's not going to make a difference in terms of losing weight, because the more you exercise, the hungrier you get, the more you eat. So it's kind of a, you know, if you're exercising a lot, you're probably overeating. The main way to stay healthy is to eat the right number of calories and do a little bit of light exercise. But you don't need to go running a fucking marathon to do that. Just get a little bit of light exercise. Don't even need to get your heart going all that much. Main thing is focus on your diet. So yeah, I think the whole thing, it was kind of foolish, and the whole Fitbit thing, and it's something that local governments are doing and corporations are doing, getting all of their employees Fitbits, and especially when they're required to report on what they've been like to get, or maybe not required, but just encouraged and sort of like almost kind of coerced.
It's like United Way. You give to United Way, but it's sort of like, you're going to give the United Way, or, you know, we're going to look at some of that performance review. It's not on the performance review, but it's implicit. You know what I mean? We want 100% compliance with this. We want you don't have to wear this one, but you know what happened to Billy Bob and his wrist when we didn't find the you know, I mean, they're not going to physically beat the shit out of somebody for not wearing a Fitbit, but they're going to be like, oh, you're not participating, you don't want to be healthy? Wow, you fat piece of shit.
Yeah, it's kind of like not wearing enough pieces of flair, basically.
Oh, yeah, from Office Space?
From Office Space. Yeah, it's that same kind of shit. It's like people not respecting your privacy and your personal sovereignty, and it really sucks.
So, and then they're probably going to come up with a new freaking one where I guess I'm really into these, I don't know. They're going to just do all kinds of shit. Like, how long do you think a Fitbit actually is going to be compatible with data? Because, I mean, if you already bought one, what's the life expectancy? What's the cycle that they're actually going to support the damn Fitbit? They just bought a Fitbit, and then they're going to say, well, you have version 1, and see the data on version 1 is not accurate, and we can no longer extract it because of the end of a firmware update. So now you just have a nice bracelet on your arm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you just blew like 50 grand in taxpayer money on these stupid digital trinkets that nobody really wanted, and they don't make shit for whatever except for making a news story and looking good on paper, I guess. You know?
Yeah.
But then,
Yep, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, but then they were also announcing a new project called The Road to Hell. It was called the Good Intentions Highway. And they were going to use taxpayer money to fund the Good Intentions Highway, and it's going to connect to the Road to Hell.
I hear that highway has a lot of roundabouts on it.
Oh, nice, dude. That was good. So, the Road to Hell was paved with good intentions, and it had a lot of roundabouts just to compound it, so you knew, you were on the high. It should say the Highway to Hell. What we should do is do a video. Is it Highway 30 that has them when they go to the liberal college campuses and Cornell in that area?
When you're headed for Mount Vernon, yeah.
So do like a slow-mo video and I'm on the highway to hell, you know what I mean? And darken the images and kind of add some fire there. And then you would
have it be like maybe negative image. Like
negative image, and it's
flames everywhere. And
it's like the highway to hell, and all it is like these roundabouts on Highway 13. That would be, I think, symbolizing your passionate hate of roundabouts.
Yeah.
And that also ties into cellular technology too, in the realm that what happens if your car gets out of control and you end up in the center of a roundabout? If you didn't have a cell phone, you don't want to be the deranged crazy man running into a Hardee's saying, my car is up on this bout, man. I'm just like going, I was trying to go NASCAR with it and it got out of hand. Next thing I know, my 94 Grand Am ended up in the center of the roundabout. And they're like, was that the same Grand Am that they had that Amber Alert about that girl missing 2 weeks ago? And they're like, no, it's a different white trash Amber or Grand Am. We're from the same trailer park, but it's a different Grand Am, That one was heading to Missouri. I'm heading to Illinois. I don't know, because if you ever seen those Amber Alerts, because a lot of these phones can also send out Amber Alerts, like for weather and that shit.
And weather alerts, yeah.
And half the time it's like, Susie's white trash baby daddy kidnapped 3 of her kids and drove off in a Pontiac Grand Am. They were last seen on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it does that. And that also ties into EMS technology, like I was saying, emergency alert systems. I don't really get the white trash Amber Alerts. I mean, there's legit Amber Alerts too, but then there's usually the drama of that, and that could just turn into a whole Jerry Springer series, like the Amber Alert miniseries, Jerry Springer, and they're like, yeah. But anyhow, the EMS technology is pretty cool because I get alerts with floods and other things like that. A cool thing also with cell phones is that they operate, you can dial 911 on a cell phone and not even have service.
Yeah.
It's a federally mandated rule. It will not work on this one though, because there's 1G technology and a majority of phones operated on 2G technology. So did a lot of in-car GPS systems, because I believe 2G technology came out around 1991. I don't recall when 3G technology came out, but 2G was a big deal for the longest time, and that was also more of a digital one. First gen was more analog, second gen's digital. So this probably could have picked up phone calls until like last year or whatever. But now they're really phasing out 2G, and 3G was the big deal for a while. They kind of mentioned 4G. Now it's LTE is what you'll see the ads are all like, the fabulous LTE network. We good?
Yep. Part 2 of the Motorola Manifesto.
I'm going to start by turning on this Motorola here. This is an AT&T Motorola. It's near the end of their production cycle. I just want to load the splash screen, all that stuff. I actually got this free when my iPhone failed, but you can kind of see the graphics, and it really highlights 3G. That was an old number of mine. It doesn't even work anymore. I had iWireless for a network provider then. It's not going to recognize the SIM card in it, but that is kind of how it works here with that. But if you look at it closely, well, it should say, well, it would say like 3G there. This is a 3G capable phone. You can see the backlight lights up. It has a 1.3 megapixel camera. It could let you go on the web. It's not going to work because, again, there's no service.
And what year did you get this phone?
I got this phone in 2013. I got it free at that time because my iPhone failed and I just needed a backup phone.
And why was it free?
It was old. It was just I have connections with different free tech stuff.
So what era is this phone from in reality?
This phone, when it would have been built, would have been anywhere from 2004 to my guess more around 2008, 2009 for this particular model of phone.
And it's newer than that one, right?
Yes, it's newer than that one. It just aesthetically it looks nicer. One of the things that I'm highlighting here is the USB connector. It actually has a cover, so you can kind of see that you can cover it up and do all that. Now it's sealed and it's concealed and it's good. The camera on the front, I like this aesthetically better. I just like the style. On the front there it says 1.3 megapixels. 1.3 megapixels. There's the back here. I have an uncle, his wife has an iPhone. He still runs with a phone just like this. And he owns a business and has a mansion and all that stuff. So
yeah, my dad has a flip phone as well. I think that older people tend to prefer the flip phones.
well, they're functional, and it's just interesting that it was this style. It was like probably one of his first phones. This is my high school phone. So this is what all the
And it was new when you got it?
I got this one new in probably 2007, I would say. It looks really similar to the other one, only it was a Verizon proprietary phone. My dad and my mother and me were all on Verizon's system through the defense contractor that my father worked at for decades. We got the discounted program, and you know, because they love giving discounts in telecommunications and phone services. So for these great proprietary lockdown, you can see the Verizon's tramp stamp on it. You can also see the AT&T one there, so we can just kind of compare and contrast it. It's a little more faded here, but it's right there. But anyhow, because they're so generous and they give you so much value for your money, we paid $120 for a finite amount of minutes in texting that we always kind of had a phobia and a fear of exceeding, because they created an artificial scarcity. This operates on what's called CDMA technology. This operates on GSM. I like GSM better. GSM is a global standard. It's like Global SIM Mobile or something like that, where where you just pop in a card and it operates it on there. In most markets, it would be T-Mobile that we would have, but in Iowa, we get iWireless, which I actually like in some ways better because it's owned by the cooperatives. It's owned by the people of Iowa.
Yes.
The way that U.S. Cellular positions themselves, and I think they're going to get bought out and restructured in a while because I just don't see how they're economically sustainable or viable, really. But the way they're structured, they're a for-profit company. The way iWireless is structured is it's owned by a lot of the small co-ops in the state of Iowa, and it helps a lot of the farmers and the agricultural people and all that get accessibility. They say power in the middle of anywhere. They are the people of anywhere. They're not, and they don't run. I don't even like that they run advertisements. I don't think they need to advertise. They should just be like, iWireless, bitches. You know, you want it. But they were slow to adapt to a better market. I think I was one of the first people to be on iWireless with an iPhone, because that's who I ran my iPhone through, was them. And you can kind of see some.
So would that be your first cell phone ever?
No, I had a track phone earlier. That was my first cell phone ever. I think we threw those out, but it was sufficient for what I really needed. But my mother wanted us to piss a lot of money away on the stupid garbage, and so we were on Verizon.
So the track phone, was that a Motorola as well?
I don't really remember. It was a block. My guess is it was a Nokia, but it was just this shitty old one that was like just a brick. But that was that phone, and then this was the first contractually obligated phone that we had, and my dad wouldn't really use it. We all had 3 matching phones like that, so all of our phones were like this. Then I upgraded near the end of high school with a sliding phone.
I am very partial to the sliders.
Yeah.
That was the phone that I had before I started transitioning into the smartphone type of phones. And I had a Sony Ericsson, and I was a big fan of that one. But fuck that, because this video is about Motorola.
Well, and the thing too with the slider, the certain ways that the phone could slide, there's really kind of a pop and top slider and then a slider, you know, and the way that it slides. When it goes this way, sliding, when you're sliding like this, it causes interference with the line that connects the two devices together, and it can create a point of failure. So it's interesting to just see how that happened. But it's, yeah. Like, we had our original one about the Motorola Star, Track Star, or whatever, that was the first camshell or flip phone. The Motorola's were actually the most popular flip phones ever made. These things were originally what all the celebrities had. It was something like this. This was like the iPhone of like 2004. They were just like, wow, look at how slim and sexy and portable it is. And then eventually,
that was back when the measure of a person's phone was still how compact it was.
Yeah.
Like, there's actually, I recall a Saturday Night Live sketch where Will Ferrell is playing a guy who's like this kind of snobby New Yorker guy, and he takes out a phone and it's like an inch tall.
So ridiculously small.
Because that was back then. That was the measure of a phone. Nowadays, people carry around giant phones with
tablets.
They're practically tablets. Like, they're almost too big to even fit in your pocket. But we've gotten to the point where the measure of a phone and the status of a phone has nothing to do with its size. It's more the brand and the shit like that.
Honestly, it depends. There's some people that are just iPhone snobs, and whatever crap Steve Jobs and company can shit out, they'll just be like, I want to drop $500 to $1,000 on this phone. This is going to be amazing. What's interesting is, like, theft is up, and a majority of the theft is iPhone theft, like in most markets. Because you can tell what's an iPhone, and a lot of times that's a hot commodity. Because even if it's a couple gen old, people want it. But Android, you can't really tell if the thing's 10 years old or 2 months old.
Yeah.
Unless it's a Samsung or something. And even then, that's debatable on, is it a Galaxy S2, 4, 8, just... So it's really a variation. But I think this also continues the Motorola trend of high quality. In some ways, this was kind of Motorola's cellular peak. I think they still make good phones, but I don't think they were ever able to recapture that market share that they got here.
You are, however, dedicated to Motorola.
Moto for life.
Moto for life. And as we close this video, because the part one of this video at certain points got a little off track and a little sidetracked. So what I want to close this video on, I want to close it strong on really to have this video live up to its name, the Motorola Manifesto. Deviant historian, what is it about Motorola, the company, and the culture and the whatever that makes you so loyal to Motorola, and why do you respect them so much?
I think the quality of their design, their construction, their build, the user interface of it. I mean, really with the Android, it's commodified the phone. You don't see on a lot of Androids the pimp name. They're not. A lot of the phones for the longest time were originally made strictly for just a particular phone provider. Like US Cellular had their own variety. Verizon had their own. AT&T had their own. Where really the universality of it through the iPhone and other devices, and I would even say this, because this is pretty universal, that I'm running it on iWireless and all that stuff, and that we get to see these phones here really make it good. But I think that you get a very good value with a Motorola phone. They're a very affordable phone. They're the people's phones. No, they're not They're not that crazy. They're made in America originally, but
Well, they kind of date back to the roots of the technology itself.
yeah. Well, the original phones, the original Motorola, the original cellular phones were Motorola's, and even in the old phone books that we would see, Motorola is a brand that would come up even back in the 50s and 60s in these ads. It's been around a long time, and they're kind of like the Honda of cellular phones. I would say they're affordable, they're reasonable, they last a long time. They come with enough bells and whistles to satisfy you, and they make them good enough. They're not gonna you're not gonna be blown away. It's not gonna help make you lose 20 pounds and cut your grass and put more money. Well, we'll put more money in your wallet because you're not dropping $1,000 on your fancy iPhone. But
You can get a Motorola for about $100, right?
yeah, a lot of decent Motorola's are about $100. You could spend like 500 if you really apply yourself to just pissing money away. But if you're good at finding a deal in that, you can get a nice Motorola phone for around 100, 150. But yeah,
Sounds good. All right. Well, this concludes the Motorola Manifesto. Everybody go out. Everybody flush your iPhones down the toilet. Down the toilet.
get insurance money and then get a Motorola.
Get yourself a Motorola.